Look, the short-term volatility of Bitcoin is unknown. You don't know it. But over the long period, because it has a 21 million cap supply, and because of the artificial supply shock caused by the halving roughly every 4 years, you definitely want to use Bitcoin. We're going to talk about a topic that we've advocated for strongly on this show, and basically what we've been saying is that use Bitcoin as saving. Don't speculate, don't leverage yourself, but use it as savings. And one of our favorite sites that we pull up all the time, I really recommend it. It's called pricedinbitcoin21.com, and it really shows the power of what we're talking about. And these are just consumer goods, right? And look, the short-term volatility of Bitcoin is unknown. You don't know it. But over the long period, because it has a 21 million cap supply, and because of the artificial supply shock caused by the halving roughly every 4 years, you definitely want to use Bitcoin. Anyways, check this out. The medium new house price, we've known how high house prices have gone up due to the money printing. If you were saving in Bitcoin, house prices have actually fallen 39%. Average new car, 45%. Chicken breast, 44%. Steak, I know Bitcoiners love steak, 32%. It's funny because out of all these things, the steak is eggs. Wow, I guess eggs are expensive, 25%. But any life gets cheaper, and if you hodl for 5 years, gets even cheaper than that. These things look like shit coins because of how far they've fallen, but they're not shit coins. Everyone loves steak. But if you've been saving in Bitcoin, steak has actually gotten cheaper. So Dr. Ross, could you add to that? What is the power of saving in Bitcoin?
I love it. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, but my pinned tweet that I've had for, I don't know, a year or something is exactly this. The longer you save in US dollars, the more expensive life gets. The longer you save in Bitcoin, the cheaper life gets. It's just math. It's just the way that they're both programmed. It's the monetary policy of both forms of money. By the way, I'm giving the US dollar too much credit by calling it money. It's actually a fiat currency. It's only money by decree. It's not a real money like Bitcoin is. So yeah, hey, there it is right there. See, it's inflation versus disinflation. And this just holds over time. And people like come at us all the time, especially this year, right? Bitcoin's down. Oh, you said it was an inflation hedge. And oh, what about debasement? Blah, blah, blah. How come it's going down and it's blah, blah. And I'm like, you guys back up a little bit. Look 3 years out, 5 years out, 7 years out, 10 years out. It is clearly on this downtrend, right? Where everything is getting cheaper, 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 cheaper. Can you imagine a life like that? Like we all grew up with inflation just being the norm, right? I mean, I'm 47, I'm old. So when I was a kid, a Snickers bar in a vending machine was 25 cents. I remember when it went up 30 cents, and then it was 35 cents, and then 50 cents. I'm like, well, why does it do that? That's weird. And everything just seems normal, right? Another example I like to give is I now have kids who are college age. The same college that I went to back in the like early to mid 90s is 4 times more expensive than it was when I was there. And I'm like, I tell my kids this, I'm like, do you think the quality of education has increased by 4 times since I was there? And I think it's probably decreased, honestly, because I'm a little skeptical of the current educational system. But all that aside, that's what inflation is. It's garbage. It's ridiculous. And the Federal Reserve and the government have made it seem like that's normal and it's good and it's healthy. And what are they really doing? They're stealing the purchasing power of us, the citizens, so that they can get bigger, they can survive, they can take on debt that's not possibly payable in sound money. So they have to debase the currency in order to pay back this massive, massive, massive amount of debt that they have. Anyways, it's tragic. It's terrible. That's why Bitcoin exists, is to get us to a world where life gets cheaper the longer you hold Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Before I pass it on to you, Phil, one more question for you, Jeff. In The Price of Tomorrow, Jeff Booth's book, he mentions throughout the book, if we allow it to happen, or if governments allow it to happen, a deflationary future. What is your stance on that? Are you from the side of Bitcoin's an inevitability like we are, because Bitcoin's incentives are just stronger than coercion, which is what governments are going to need if they want their CBDCs to beat Bitcoin? What school of thought are you on? What side are you on? Is this inevitability? Do the right things need to happen? What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, not to just be a yes man, but I think it's absolutely inevitable. It's clearly better money. Like if you put any thought into it in any study and study what money is, why does money exist? Why does government control money currently? Is that a good thing? Is it necessary? What are the best properties of money? You can't can't think about that kind of stuff and not come away with Bitcoin as simply the best money. It's simply better money for a better world. And so the world is just kind of behind the 8 ball as usual, right? We're the sort of early adopters who figured it out a little sooner than most people. The world will figure it out eventually. And actually, honestly, at least half of the world's population will never really get it. They'll just start using it because it'll just become sort of like the internet. Most people don't understand the internet or how it works, but now everybody uses the internet, even though they have no idea. The exact same thing is happening with Bitcoin. I tell people all the time that hyper-Bitcoinization, I'm kind of bastardizing the word here, but I think it's already underway. We're seeing it happen. Like, can you imagine 5 years ago, how many pieces of news we have every day that are Bitcoin-centered pieces of news? Even in this massive bear market right now, politicians are talking about it. Countries, are adopting it, or they're meeting about it. Corporations have it on their agendas. Lightning Network is expanding. Use cases are expanding. You can pay with Bitcoin now, and more, blah, 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 all that stuff. That would have been just insane to even imagine 5 years ago that it would be at the forefront of society as much as it is. To me, it's just absolutely an inevitability. It's happening. You can deny it all you want, but it is happening. So I just recommend to people that you quit being so stupid and take the time to figure out why it's better money sooner than later, so that you can actually benefit from the rise of the price. That's also inevitable with the ascension of Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Phil, tied up.
Yeah. So just to go on with what Jeff said, a couple of points. I totally agree. We are in the early stages of hyper-Bitcoinization. People could even suggest that hyper-Bitcoinization started as soon as the white paper dropped, right? Because really, it all depends. It all depends on where we are in the stage, right? Just because things are moving slowly, just because adoption is happening at a trickle, doesn't mean that is not part of the process, and it doesn't mean that we're not in that whole entire long game. So you aged yourself. I'm going to age myself. I'm 43, so we're from the same generation, right? I'm only 5 years younger than you. We're Gen Xers, so we were the first generation, as I've said in the past, we were the first generation to earn less than our parents on a grand scale. Now, the reason why I'm explaining that is that I think everybody should check out the book Dumbing Us Down. Okay, it's a very interesting book, eye-opening, about our education system and why we are being taught what we are being taught in general. So I think that everybody should check that out. I really enjoyed it. And the last piece to this is the US dollar purchasing power, right? So look, I understand that it's painful to see Bitcoin drop 40%, 50%, 60%, but wouldn't you be really pissed off if your purchasing power dropped 99% and you didn't know it? I know I'd be super pissed. So when I found out, I was super pissed, okay? Because that's what the US dollar is doing. And it's not just the US dollar, right? We're not just going to pick on the US dollar. You can go take a look at other currencies, such as the Canadian dollar. You can go take a look at the euro, okay? All of these are losing their purchasing power at an alarming rate. And this is because the monetary policy is being handled by human beings. They can constantly change it, okay? And the other piece to this is that they're not all on the same team, right? Like the Europeans, Americans, right? They're not all on the same team. All of these currencies are battling. So there's a whole bunch of shenanigans that are going on in the background that people like me do not really know in depth. So you know what? Bitcoin, we get to remove the people, remove the shenanigans, and just stick with the censorship resistance, the decentralization, and the hard money. And I'm good with that.
Amen. Wow.
Love it.
Preach, brother.